Our first ethical principle is do no harm. And yes, of course, do no harm with your client, but also do no harm with yourself. Having good body mechanics while you're working is one of the best ways that you can take care of yourself so that you're not hurting your shoulders, hurting your neck, hurting your back, hurting your hips. Right? So you can actually practice and do massage therapy as long as you want to, and not for just as long until your body burns out or gives up or is in so much pain that you can't work anymore. I've had many massage therapists come to my continuing education classes over the years, and I've seen a wide variety of what folks think are pretty good body mechanics. Yet most of my students come in and say, oh, my body mechanics are terrible. Even some practitioners who've been practicing 5, 10, 15 years will say, my body mechanics aren't so good. And the ones who have been practicing longer with poor body mechanics have found that their work is suffering, their work starts to feel like drudgery, and they are changing the way they work. Maybe they're sitting more, or they're not feeling strong in their bodies. Most people with poor body mechanics don't make it that 10, 15 years because their shoulders blow out, their back blows out, they just feel terrible. And so now that I'm entering 30 years of doing this work and still excited about it and still feel good in my body, I want to share with you some key principles of how to take care of your own body while you're doing massage work. So a few key principles are: set your table low enough so that you can use your body weight. So use your body weight instead of your strength, instead of your body strength. If you can transfer your weight through your hands well, and there are few key principles to that, then you're not blowing out your shoulders, your wrists, and your hands. So lower your table, use your body weight effectively, transfer your body weight through your hands so that you're not using your strength. Another principle is to let your pelvis lead your work, so that you're not stretching your body away from your pelvis, but you're actually leading your work with your pelvis. Makes a huge difference. Another piece I see is a lot of folks tend to get into a really long warrior stance. So I'm going to recommend that you tighten up that warrior stance. So shorter warrior stance. So we have lower your table, use your body weight. We have using a tighter warrior stance and letting your pelvis guide your work. Those few principles translated into different areas of the body and ways that you work, super effective. Now that all can be done whether or not you have a table that goes up and down like mine does, or if you have a stationary table. However, I do recommend, as soon as you can, get a table that goes up and down. I waited 20 years to get an electric table, and I really wish I had not waited 20 years. My body was starting to feel the effects. Even with excellent body mechanics, it still takes a little bit of a toll to not be able to shift your stance and your body during your sessions. So as soon as you can, get a table that goes up and down. So we're going to go through some of these principles, and I'm going to show you in different parts of the body, in different positions, how that translates and how it can be helpful. I'm going to show you some things moving the table up and down, and then I'm going to show you some things how to really maximize the effectiveness of a stationary table, so that you can use your body weight well and take care of yourself. Really, the principle is always do no harm, right? Take care of yourself. And they always say in the airplane, right, put your own oxygen mask on first, then you help your people. Well, it's the same thing. Take care of your body first. It doesn't serve you to be in pain, not feeling well in your body, and trying to take care of other people, because you're going to be aggravated. You're going to maybe even start resenting your clients. You're working on them going, oh, my body really needs that, or oh, I'm trying to hold this spot, but my back hurts. And so take care of yourself first and foremost. So on a stationary table, that's going to mean if you want to do deeper work, right? If you want to get some pressure in, it's going to mean lowering your table pretty significantly so that you can bring your body weight over your client and over your hands. So part of that translating your weight well in your work is stacking your joints and keeping your arms straight as you can, and letting the hand be soft. So if I'm working with Sarah and I'm wanting to lean in, I'm gonna just get my little sort of half warrior stance going here so that notice that my legs are a little closer together. I'm not all the way out here because then I'm like this, right? I'm kind of pushing this way. But if I tighten up my stance, then I can rest my hands on her body and I can sink in. And if I am sinking as opposed to pushing, then I can really feel her body respond. I can feel when it feels like enough pressure to her. I don't have to guess and I don't have to ask her. I still will, right? But I can kind of feel like, oh, and then I can shift and move, and I can move my body, and I'm moving my pelvis. Notice that as I move, my pelvis moves with me because my pelvis is guiding my work. So if I'm wanting to do deeper, firmer work, I want the table pretty darn low. You'll see that this table is kind of like the top of that table is right at my kneecap, is right at the top of my knee. Then I have a little cushion on it, and then we have a body on the table, right? So if you are working with someone, as I said, Sarah is a small body person. She's not really thick. If I get someone in here who is 3 times Sarah's size, that's going to be really difficult if the table is up high for me to be effective in my work. So I lower the table, then I move my pelvis toward the work, and then when I want to back out of the pressure, the first thing that moves is my pelvis, right? So I bring my pelvis forward, I stack my joints, I sink my body weight. That's plenty of pressure for her, and I am not working hard at all. I can keep my neck long, I can keep my back long, I can be aware of how my body feels, and I could stay like this for a very long time, and it's not hurting me. And then when I'm ready to back out of my pressure, I just start moving my pelvis back first. That automatically, that just took half the pressure off of my hands, right? So then I'm gonna stand up, and I wanna show you what that would look like if the table were up at where I commonly see people put their massage table is, you know, kind of right at the tips of their fingers. So I'm gonna get to right at the tips of my fingers. And so then, especially if I go into a big warrior stance, now I'm pushing that way. I can't get pressure into her body without pushing and without using my upper body strength, right? So even if I try my best body mechanics this high, my shoulders are still going to be up at my ears. And that's going to be very hard on my shoulders over time. And I have seen so many massage therapists get headaches, have shoulder issues, and just have to give up the work completely again. But now if I'm working at her feet, this might be a fine height, right? Which is the nice thing about having a table that goes up and down. I can stand up a little straighter, and I could just do some great footwork here, no problem, and it's real easy on my body. And I can work, because in this, when I'm doing footwork, I don't necessarily need to use my body weight as much as when I'm, say, trying to get into quads or hamstrings or some deeper pressure anywhere in the body. So first thing is, in general, keep the table lower. If you can't get an electric table, really the first thing is get an electric table as soon as you can. The second piece is keep the table lower if you're wanting to do deep work. And then bringing your pelvis behind your work. So I also want to keep myself oriented toward my work. So if I'm working on someone's inner thigh, let's say Sarah came to me and she's having some outer hip issues. So of course I want to address her adductors, her inner thigh muscles, because they have such a strong pull on those outer hips. So I'm going to need to address those adductors. I want to work on the opposite side because then I'm having my body weight and my pelvis behind my work, leading my work. And I don't want to get stuck in a big long warrior stance and get stuck in a twist. I see it all the time in my classes. So I'm going to show you just simply using your body weight effectively, working across the table. So first, I'll show you what I see a lot of time in my students, or if I'm receiving a massage, I see folks wanting to work the inner thigh and they're kind of going like this way, right? So first of all, the arm isn't straight. I'm leaning sideways. This is even with the table low. This is going to look a lot worse with the table up high. If someone has the table up really high and they're trying to do inner thigh work on the same side, they're going to be looking like this, right? Oh, it's so hard. It's so hard on the neck, on the back. Now my back is all rounded in flexion, weighted flexion, and I'm like pushing. And because I'm pushing, I can't feel when I've gone too far. If you can sync with your body weight, that's when you can really feel the subtle changes in the tissue. And that's when you can feel when it's enough pressure. I just sink in with my body weight until I feel some resistance. So here's what that looks like. Even with the table up high, because I want to be 90 degrees to my tissue, I can bring my hands, and I'm not in that warrior stance. See, I step my feet wide, bend my knees, and I'm going to talk about not tucking in a moment. You'll see that I kind of stick my butt out behind me, and then all I have to do is lean my pelvis forward. And then I can get amazing pressure and do really wonderful inner thigh work. My arms can be straight, my hands can be relaxed, my neck can be long, my shoulders are soft away from my ears. You can see all of that, right? If I have a lot of students who have come in who, again, get stuck in that big warrior stance, right? They feel like everything should be done in that warrior stance. So even when I'm teaching working across the body, one of the main things I teach in my classes is constant awareness of body mechanics. So what I see is this. People get in their big, long warrior stance. Now they're a little bit too low, and they're doing this. Their pelvis is going this way, so their spine has to twist. Well, one of the most damaging things, one of the things that causes the most injury in the spine is being stuck in a twist for a long period of time. So if you get stuck in a twist and you're pushing or you're staying there for a really long time, it's going to be very hard for your back to feel well. So instead of being stuck in that warrior stance and pushing, right? Or even if you're leaning, but you're twisted, right? So face your work, pelvis behind your work. Now all you have to do is lean your weight forward. If you want to use more pressure, and inner thighs are real tender, so I'm going to pretend to use more pressure on Sarah. I'm not going to push a lot of deep pressure because that will be a little bit painful. So if I step back in a big long warrior stance, then I'm like this, right? But if I tighten it up, as I want more pressure, both knees are bent, pelvis a little bit tilted, spine is long, then I can just push off that back foot. See how my back foot is, my heel is raised off the floor. So I push off that back foot, and that translates more pressure. I can hang back here and keep my butt back and low, my pelvis. And then when I want more pressure, all I have to do is launch my pelvis a little bit forward by pushing off of that back foot. And that pushes my body weight or sinks my body weight forward so that I'm not pushing. I'm not using my upper body or arm strength at all. I'm actually just using my leg strength. Why do we want to use our leg strength? Well, the leg muscles, quads, hamstring, these are the biggest muscles in the body, right? They're the strongest, thickest, biggest muscles in the body. So more of your body is going to be supported and moved easily by these bigger muscles than if you're just using your upper body for your strength. So table low when you need to get up and over, and I'm going to have Sarah turn over in just a moment so I can show you some things. Table low if it doesn't go up and down. If you have a table that moves up and down, use it well, and let your table go down as low as you want it to so that you can really get your body up and over your work, especially these big muscles of the thighs. They can take a lot of pressure. So if I want to just hang myself, get my body over her body so that I can use good pressure, straight arm, ease in my own body, I can keep shifting around, letting my pelvis guide my work instead of the strength that I have in my arms and shoulders. So now I'm going to ask Sarah to go ahead and slide and go face down, and then we're going to cover a few more things. With your client prone and you want to do some hamstring work, some really good hamstring work, right? The hamstrings can take a lot of pressure, a lot of really good deep pressure. And it's going to feel a lot better to the body. It's going to kind of court the nervous system a little more sweetly, and they'll actually relax much more if you're not just pushing really hard into their hamstrings, or for that matter, any part of their body. So we can do really nice deep hamstring work with the table low enough. And actually, this table goes really low, and I do commonly use it all the way down, as far down as it can go. And then I just angle my body to my work, and I can use even a soft fist. And all I have to do is sink my body forward. I can relax my hands, use some nice pressure. I could also work across the body. I could bring in that short warrior stance and use that back leg. How's that all feeling, Sarah? It's good. Yeah, it feels really good. So this way you can really see how I can launch myself with that back foot. Notice how nice and straight my back stays. Notice how nice my neck stays. Notice that my shoulders are relaxed. Nothing's up around my ears. I'm not pushing, right? And then I would keep my table, if it's a stationary table, just around knee height or slightly above. That's how I worked for 20 years, so that I could do some gliding. And again, I use a shorter warrior stance so that I can use that back leg and to propel my pelvis forward and back. When I start going back, the first thing that moves is my pelvis. My hands, most of the time in my work, are really just kind of along for the ride. The pelvis is guiding. The legs are letting that happen, or are what's kind of giving the force and what's propelling my pelvis forward and back for my work. And then my hands are just along for the ride. And then if the table's low enough, when I want to sink in, all I have to do is kind of lean in and let my body weight be translated. Now, if my pelvis is higher than my hands, it's much more effective than if the pelvis is lower, right? If I raise this table up, and what ends up happening as I start getting that table up higher and higher, the higher that table is, once my pelvis sinks below my hands, I can't translate my body weight. It's very, very difficult. I'm only translating maybe arm and a little bit of torso at this point. So it's going to be much harder to get deeper pressure. And you'll find yourself struggling. You'll find and then you'll find yourself pushing. And again, pushing feels very different to the nervous system that's on your table than sinking. If you sink into that tissue, it's a much different experience, and their body responds very differently. So it's the same if I want to work in the back. I like to have the table pretty low for when I'm working in the back. So I'm going to show you couple things right here and for neck work as well. So with your table low enough, with your client prone, you can actually keep that short stance, that short warrior stance. And you can even get yourself up and over so you could do a little nice easy compression in the hips. You can glide and slide. Notice I step that back leg in, and then I can lean myself over. I can really get my body over the table as opposed to getting stuck behind it in this really long stance, and then I'm just forcing my way through my sessions. This way I can glide, I can even reach down to the hamstrings. Notice my pelvis is what guides and moves me in all of my work. Also, I could lift that table up just a little bit. I can do some nice across the body shoulder work, or I could stand right in close and do some nice trigger point neck work where I'm using my thumb in the back of the neck and just sinking in. I can do so much more and better work, more effective work that's a lot easier on my body if I'm using good body mechanics. I hope you find this information useful and helpful. Here's just a little recap. Principle is do no harm, and that means do no harm to yourself also, as well as your clients. It means taking care of yourself first, putting on your own oxygen mask by using good body mechanics so that you're not doing any damage to your own body and kind of getting frustrated and irritated when you're doing massage work. Those principles of good body mechanics are just try your table lower so that you can use your body weight effectively. So use your body weight instead of your upper body strength to get the pressure that you're seeking. If you want to do deeper work, the lower the table, the better, so that you can get more of your body weight over the table and over your hands. The body weight is moved by the pelvis. The pelvis initiates the movement. So the pelvis is guiding where your work is. And your pelvis is propelled in that movement by the legs, the strongest and biggest muscles in the body. So your legs are holding you up, your legs are moving, so that is what's actually where you're gliding and you're moving in your massage work is actually coming from. It's from the legs, moving the pelvis, and the hands and the arms are just kind of along for the ride as much as possible. When you are going to sink in more deeply, the lower table is better, and you can straighten your arm and sink in with those straight joints so that the weight of your body gets translated through those straight joints. If your elbow is bent, it doesn't feel quite as solid. You have to work a lot harder to get the same pressure. Shorten up that warrior stance. If you're really long and you're stuck in a tuck, then you're actually obliterating your lumbar spine, and you can't really get anywhere if you're stuck in this stance. This stance is not meant to be a stance. It's meant to be more like Tai Chi, more like movement, right? And I want to speak to that tuck for a moment. If you tuck your pelvis under you, I've had students tell me their teachers told them to tuck their pelvis. Please don't tuck your pelvis. If your pelvis tucks under while you're working, you are actually removing your lumbar curve and actually can be causing damage. So you want to keep a little bit of a tilt in your pelvis, and you'll notice as I'm doing my work, I'm actually kind of sticking my butt out a little bit, but I'm keeping good form through my whole spine so that my spine has its natural curves instead of being stuck in a tuck. Welcome back, and continuing our journey with principles of good body mechanics. I'm going to kind of expand on some of the things that I have mentioned in the previous video and continue on so that you get a full picture of how to really take care of yourself when you are doing your massage work. So keeping the table height generally below the level of your pelvis so that your pelvis can sink your body weight in through your hands. Using that body weight, not pushing, not ever pushing. We're about to talk about that a little bit more. You want to use your legs to move your pelvis, and then your pelvis moves your hands. Your hands are along for the ride. It's not arm strength. It's legs moving the pelvis, and it's like a dance, right? And so you're moving your hands through your pelvis via your legs. And then you also want to keep your arms straight in general. Stack your joints so that this is called, in your joints, it's called the closed packed position. It's where the joint is the most strong and stable. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that also. And then when you're really wanting to effectively work in deeper layers of the body, you need to work 90 degrees to the tissue. So you should be moving, following the curves of your client's body. So we're going to expand on or flesh out some of the principles that we've discussed and kind of add a little bit more to it. So you get a really clear picture of how to take care of your own body so that you can do this work as long as you would like, right? So let's talk about stacking the joints. So when you are working, if your table is up too high, right? And so that first principle is like really work with the table low. If you're doing that like fingertips at the top of the table, then you put a body on it. As I said, Sarah is a smaller framed person. So if I have somebody who's big, now they're going to be up here. I can't keep my arms straight. With Sarah, the only thing I could do to when I keep my arms straight, I could maybe do a little bit of work here or a little bit on her hand or her forearms, but I'm also not really going to be able to use any pressure because I can't get my body behind my work. If I'm up here and then I get into even a shortened warrior stance, my shoulder's already jammed up, right? You can see that if I'm keeping my arms straight, my shoulder's already jammed up, and it makes it hard for me to be 90 degrees to the tissue, which is really important. And again, I'm going to expand on that a little bit more in a moment. So if I'm wanting to keep my arms straight, I have to have the table lower, because once it's high, and I've seen people work with their tables like as high as this, then I can only do this. I can only have my elbows bent, and then if I want to get some weight in, I'm going to be bending my elbow, because otherwise my shoulder is going to be jacked up to my ear, and your own body is going to start sending you messages like, hey, that's not actually okay. That is not working for me. And so your shoulder, in an effort to protect itself, is going to force you to kind of bend your elbow to drop that shoulder away from the ear. But now your elbow's bent. And so now the weight that you're putting on, the pressure, is really just coming from your upper body. And especially if you're in a warrior stance, now it's very hard to not work with your shoulders up to your ears. And that is a problem. That is going to create a lot of pain, loss of range of motion, dysfunction, maybe even some tearing in your own shoulders. And then also, because you can feel that you're not really using your body weight effectively, your arms are going to be working so hard, and your hands are going to work harder. Because if you're not using your body weight and your arms are working hard and they can't be full effect, then when you want to get some deeper pressure into a particular spot, maybe a trigger point, or a place that's locked up in tension, you're going to have to use your hands more. So that ultimately causes dysfunction in flexors extensors, can lead to carpal tunnel syndrome, can lead to just wrist dysfunction, pain in the fingers, aching, can lead to elbow issues, tendonitis in your elbows, and rotator cuff injury, all of that just by working with your tables too high and your stance too big, or just being stuck in a stance. Like that, I see so much in my classes. People get stuck in this long warrior and then they're reaching really far, okay? So again, lowering that table because we want to be able to stack the joints. So even if I worked here, if I want to sink into her hamstrings, I'd have to stay up pretty straight to be able to lean pressure into her hamstrings. But if I want to get a fuller effect and be able to keep my joints stacked to protect my own fingers, wrists, elbows, and shoulders, I'm gonna push that table down even lower. So you are going to need to place your table as low as it needs to be for you to be able to stack your joints, to preserve your upper body, for you to be able to be in a shortened warrior stance with your knees bent so that you can move your pelvis to move your hands and follow the curves of their body, okay? And so if you are with the table low enough, you can face your client, sink in, and keep your joints stacked. When that table is too high, you're only pushing. And here's the thing about that. You don't want to be only pushing, because when you are pushing, you're literally pushing through your client's nervous system. And really, our main job as body workers and massage therapists is to gain the trust of the nervous system that's on the table. To gain the trust of the nervous system. I don't just see a body, I see a nervous system. And the thing is, as we know as professional body workers, there's emotional and physical guarding going on in every body that comes in. I'm recording this during the COVID pandemic. People are freaking out because they haven't been able to have the social pieces in their lives that they need to feel good and to feel safe. A lot of people have experienced trauma, abuse, they're angry, they're frustrated. Maybe they fought through traffic to get to you, and then they get on the table and they might feel really like jacked up, right? I recently was working with someone who I literally felt like I was massaging rage. Like her skin moved, and then just deep to the skin, it was hard as a rock. It was hard as a rock. And so instead of pushing my way through that, like, oh gosh, you're so tense, right? I want to go, oh, okay, let's breathe. And just placing my hands like firmly and steadily, that compression helps to soothe the nervous system. But if I'm not aware that part of my job as a massage therapist is to court their nervous system, is to help them to deeply relax from the inside and not just from the outside, and I'm going about my business pushing on their bodies, that push registers in the nervous system as I'm being pushed around. And that is not what any nervous system really wants to feel. You don't want to feel like you're being pushed. You want to feel like you're being held and supported in ease and relaxation. So when I'm pushing on a client, I cannot tell when my pressure is the right depth. So I've been doing this almost 30 years. That's a long time. And one thing I've learned is I sure can push my way into someone's body. I can force their trigger points to release, and maybe they will. But what is going to happen is that those trigger points, that tension is going to come back, and it's going to bring friends. It's going to bring backup. They're going to have more guarding around that spot that I forced. They might be sore, they might be bruised, that might even cause damage to their tissue. Because when you're pushing into someone's body, you can't tell. You can't receive the message that their nervous system is giving you going, that's enough, right? Because you might need to be working in deeper layers of the tissue. So if I'm here and I'm wanting to work in her hamstrings and I'm down in a warrior stance and I'm like this, first of all, I can't be 90 degrees to the tissue, right? And I'm definitely have to push, and I might be using, if I'm in that big warrior stance, right? I might be using, and that's that push. I'm going to push right over her tender spots and not even know. So when I'm warming the tissue, helping it to get hydrated, I might work with the table higher so that I can't put really deep pressure. I might work with the table up here, just kind of soothing, moving, following the curves of her body, working, using my pelvis to control and guide my work. And then when I'm ready to get into some pressure, notice that my hands are relaxed. I don't have to worry as much about stacking my joints because I'm not using a lot of deep pressure, very, very light pressure, to just let her nervous system know, like, hey, I'm here, we're here together. I'm just going to get some hydration going, and I'm not using a lot of pressure. So not as important to keep my joints stacked the whole time. And I can have that table up higher, sure. But then it's really about when I want to sink into deeper layers of the tissue, I need to get that table a little bit lower. And I'm going to tighten up my stance even more. And then I might use a little light palpation to feel where her hamstrings are holding a little bit of tension. And then I'm going to sink slowly, nice and slow. And watch what I do. Watch my body. My whole pelvis sinks. And as it does that, I can feel her body is starting to resist me, so I'm not going to push anymore. And Sarah, how does that pressure feel?
It's good. Yeah.
It's good. Would you like a little more pressure?
Maybe in a minute.
Okay.
It's tender.
It's tender spot, yeah. But notice she said, yeah, it's good. Like it's a little bit, I can feel it, she can feel it's tender, but I didn't just shove my way through her nervous system. And I asked her, how does that feel? And often what I'll say is, does that pressure feel right? Because if I just say, does that feel good? Good can mean it feels like nothing, or good can mean that it feels like, whoa, that's a really good spot, So it doesn't really tell me anything. I can feel her tissue's starting to open up a little bit. Is that true, Sarah? Are you feeling it soften a little bit? Notice I just stayed steady. I didn't try to push it out. I didn't try to force it out. And then could I add a little bit more pressure? Would that be okay?
Yeah.
So watch, notice my arms are straight. I'm stacked. All I'm going to do is push off my back foot. And I'm leaning a little more. And how about there?
That's really nice.
And she said, that's really nice. So notice I didn't push. The whole orientation of my body did not change. The only thing that changed was that I used my back foot to push my body forward. That's the only pushing, right? So I could lean in more and sink in. Ooh, nice release. And then that just really shifted in a big way, her tissue. And then now to come out, again, I just drop that back heel. I back off. And then I can do some soothing again. So you see, if I have that table really, really high, other direction, cat. When I have that table really, really high, I can't feel when her body says, that's enough. Because her body's already going to be guarded just by the fact that I'm pushing. So let's see if I want to work in that same spot and I can feel that there's something going on there. I'll go right next to it, right? And then look at the orientation of my shoulder, my elbow, and my thumb, right? I can't stack my joints with the table this high. I'd have to come up on my toes and stick my shoulder up to my ear. I've seen this so many times in my CE classes. I'm like, oh, lower your table, take care of your own body, right? But let's say I decide to go in here now, my body weight, my pelvis is basically below my work. I can only use my body weight. And to get 90 degrees, I have to get myself in a little bit of a contorted position because the table's so high, my body's over here. I can't lean over the table. So now if I do lean over the table, my elbow has to bend more. My shoulder projects forward in the socket, and then I'm pushing, and it feels really different to the client. Is that true, Sarah? Yeah, the quality of the sensation that they feel is very different. There's no comparison. There's no comparison between that, okay, I'm going to push my way in to your hard spots, or I'm going to sink my way in. So I often will move my table up and down as I'm working, so I can get in spot and go, oh yeah, that needs some like more particular pressure. And then it's fairly effortless. The only effort is stacking my thumb and supporting it. And then all I have to do is lean my body a little bit. Completely effortless. I'm just sinking some weight into my thumb. And does that feel like the right pressure, Sarah?
Yeah, maybe a little less.
A little less. So all I have to do is back off a little bit. So asking if it's the right pressure, giving your clients permission to say more or less at any time. Because the other piece is that how much sensation is going through the nerve relative to this tension. I might misread it. My best chance of reading it well is sinking into the tissue, effortless sinking into the tissue, just moving my body. And then when they want a little less, I can just back off just a tiny bit, but I don't back off by lifting my arm. I back off by shifting my weight away from the person on the table. When I want more pressure, I just sink my weight more forward, which sinks my thumb or my fist or the heel of my hand or my elbow a little bit more into the tissue. So it's really so important. You cannot bypass someone's nervous system. Your job is to court it. Your job is to help them let go of their tension from the inside. And if you can successfully support a person's nervous system in letting go, 80% of your work is done. Then you can just go bing, 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 real specific on some trigger points or whatever your work is, get real specific in a few places, and they're going to walk out of your session feeling really different, really changed, really feeling so much more ease. So let's just review that part just very quickly. Stacking the joints. To stack your joints properly, your table must be low enough for you to do that. And then when you want to go into deeper levels, or when you want to effectively release tension, also known as trigger points and tension are the same thing. And so if you're wanting to release tension in your client, you want to get down to a deeper level, just starting at a very superficial level and slowly sinking your weight into that space. Now, the broader my pressure, the less intense it's going to feel to them. The more specific my pressure, like with one thumb or one knuckle or so, the more intense that they're going to have that experience. So if I'm first working in an area, first working with a client, I'm going to keep my pressure a little bit broader, and I'm going to kind of hold back a little bit just until I know that their nervous system trusts me and trusts that I'm going to do a good job. And I promise you, if you do this sinking, you're going to feel more relaxed, and you feeling more relaxed is going to help your client to feel more relaxed, and you're going to get much further with them throughout your work together. So stacking the joints, hands relaxed or thumbs supported, and then sinking your body weight, using your pelvis. Table must be low enough to do that. So another point that I would like to make is that you need to be 90 degrees to the tissue. That gets very, very difficult when you have the table up too high. And I'm going to show you on like glutes and piriformis, right? Let's say I got this table up real high. I'm just going to move your arm over here, Sarah. Thank you. Okay. So then here we have, here's her sacrum right in the middle, right here. And then from that kind of center line of the sacrum and out to the greater trochanter of the femur, right about here, there's our piriformis line right there. Okay. Now, the piriformis tends to hold trigger points right at that sacral insertion and right near its greater trochanter insertion. So 2 main trigger points right there in piriformis. Now, if I want to get to that point, and you want to kind of press down and in toward the sacrum a little bit. Well, I can't press down really with keeping my joints stacked. If the table is up this high, my elbows elbows bent, my wrist is bent. That looks terrible. That's death and destruction to your wrist right there. There's the end of your career right there. And then your thumb is very hard to translate your body weight through this. And if I'm just going like this, or if I'm kind of working like this, notice I'm kind of almost sliding off. My angle of my pressure is actually this way in that position, or it's like this. So just trapping and sinking might feel a little good, but it's not really going to specifically get that point. I have to think about what the anatomy is here. And I also need to trap that tissue against something else. So if I want to really effectively work in those piriformis trigger points, especially this outer trigger point right near the greater trochanter, I'm going to have to either use my elbow to sink straight down. I want to follow the curves of the body. Now, if I am going like this, if I'm doing this, oh, I'm massaging piriformis. No, you're not. You're not really even touching piriformis. Piriformis is deeper in there. You got to get through all the glutes, right? So if you're in the area of piriformis and you're just kind of rubbing up or rubbing down toward the feet, you're not sinking deep enough to even affect piriformis. And then now if I want to get into piriformis and I want to kind of trap that point against the sacrum, I have to sink down deep enough to get to that point and then lean in a little bit toward the sacrum so that I'm trapping it and I'm working 90 degrees to the tissue. Let's look at gluteus medius. Gluteus medius trigger points follow the curve of the top rim of the pelvis. So the first gluteus medius trigger point is right at the SI joint. Now, if I put my thumb here and I get my good body mechanics going, maybe I lower the table a little bit. If I put my thumb in that spot, but I'm angling out that way, that feels like nothing to her. Is that true? That feels like nothing, right? I could angle straight down toward the floor, maybe a little bit, yeah, a little tiny bit, maybe, nothing. But now if I angle in, like following the curves of the body, here's that curve. Now I'm 90 degrees to the tissue and I sink in. Sarah, let me know. And she just said, yeah, that's great. I'm on the same spot. I'm going to go back because she sounded like she really enjoyed that. She's like, don't stop just because you're demoing. So I'm 90 degrees to her gluteus medius and following the curve of the pelvis. Again, when I started straight down to the floor, nothing. When I just sank in, I was pointing up that way, nothing. My thumb did not move off the point of her body. If the table is too high, I cannot orient myself 90 degrees. And you will struggle for years trying to get in, and you're going to work really hard and think, oh, deep pressure, deep pressure. But it's not mindful present deep pressure. It's just trying to get in there. So now if I follow the curve of her pelvis, at first my angle was here, and now I come out, and now my angle is like a little bit lower, actually. So notice I sink in my knees to get that little bit lower. I palpate along. Okay, Sarah, keep me posted. Let me know when it's the right pressure. And she said, that's good. Notice all I did was just lean my weight forward. My back is nice and long. I got a nice curve in my lumbar. I'm not tucking. Got a nice curve in my lumbar spine. My spine is long. Now while I'm holding on tender spots, now I can check the rest of my posture. We spend a lot of time hanging our heads forward in this work, right? Lengthen your neck whenever you can. Lengthen through the neck whenever you can. And how's that feeling now, Sarah? Okay, do you want more or less pressure? Just there. We're going to let her take another breath. Sarah does a lot of demoing for me, so I got to release her trigger points every once in a while. So she'll keep saying yes to get on that table. And so now my last point. So here I could bring this leg back, keep my shorter stance in a little bit. I'm following the curves. So now when I was up here, my pressure was angled this way. If I come to this last point and keep that pressure the same direction, I'm going to slide right off. I'm not going to get it, right? So it's not just to the floor. 90 degrees following the curves of the body. And so then I engage my good body mechanics, tightened up my warrior stance, use my back foot, and I go slowly in. I'm just going to do it this way. Let's see. Slowly in, leaning forward. Let me know, Sarah. And right there. And then I just hold it. And while I'm holding the points so that they release, I check, is my shoulder relaxed? Are my shoulders relaxed? Is my spine long? Am I breathing and relaxing in my own body? And then if I'm holding that right pressure and I'm at the right angle and I'm not pushing, I haven't moved any part of my body, I can feel as it starts to unwind. It's softened a little bit. It's not completely gone, but it's softened a little bit. Is that true, Sarah? Yeah. And so now remember to back off. I pull my pelvis away first. Okay, I don't pull my hands away. I lean my pelvis back. I'm going to give her a little glute med rub after those trigger points. Great. So really important to understand stacking the joints when you're wanting pressure. Light pressure, no problem. Move your hands around, move your elbows around. Table low enough so that you can do that. Table low enough so that you can keep shifting the position of your body to be 90 degrees to the area that you're wanting to work to get the depth, right? Let me show you that principle right here. Here's our quadratus lumborum. Here's the top of her pelvis. Here's her lowest rib. If I want to work in the erectors, I need to be 90 degrees. If my table's up here, I can't get over her back. So if I want to work in the erectors, I would get over the table. I would even put this table a little bit lower for myself right now so that I can get up and over and sink 90 degrees in there. But then when I'm ready to work in quadratus lumborum, if I get out here where quadratus lumborum is and my pressure's to the floor, I'm not even touching her quadratus lumborum. I got to think, where does quadratus lumborum live? It lives in there. And so what I want to do is get my pressure toward her spine. That way I can trap her quadratus lumborum. So I actually like to lift my table up pretty high when I'm working in quadratus lumborum so I don't have to bend in my knees as much. And then I get my thumb in there and I can angle for that upper point. I can angle straight here. And when I want to get the point down near her sacrum, I turn my body this way. And so I'm 90 degrees to that tissue every time. And that will completely change the efficacy of your work. You will be so much more effective if you follow the curves of the body And your body mechanics are key to being able to do that and having that table low enough. So stack your joints, table low enough, sink instead of push, move your body with your legs, shortened stance in that warrior stance. The legs move the pelvis moves the arms and the hands. Communicate with your client. You cannot push, you should not push or force yourself through their nervous system. Their nervous system has to trust you, and it has to feel comfortable enough for the nervous system to relax. It's not just they can't relax. If you're pushing on them, no, they can't relax. That's not their fault. That's on you. So you stop pushing, you start sinking, gain the trust of their nervous system. Extraordinary shifts are going to happen. You'll feel it right under your fingers because you'll be sinking into that layer. You're not going to miss it. You're not going to bypass that place where the nervous system goes, don't go here. That's not okay. And then you go, okay, I honor that. I honor that edge. And then by just hanging out there, their nervous system might let go a little bit and go, oh, okay, I think I might let you in a little more. And then they might go, oh yeah, now a little bit more. And then you can just lean in just a little bit more. So easy, so much easier on your body. I would not be able to be here 30 years into doing this work if I didn't have good body mechanics from the very beginning. I'm so grateful to my teachers at Florida School of Massage in Gainesville, Florida, shout out, for teaching me really good body mechanics from the beginning. And I know several of my peers who were in my class and in classes even before me who are still doing massage work today. And that's kind of rare. People burn out with this work. So good body mechanics not only keep you from burning out, but make you a much more effective massage therapist in the process. I hope you find all these tools and skills helpful.